1. So this happened a while back, 8 years or so, but thought someone may get a kick out of it. Here's the story. I was in high school and we had a pretty cool teacher. Just about every day we would be doing group projects. This was a science class, so we had stations in the back of the classroom that each group would do their experiments at. The teacher didn't pay too much attention to us while we were all back there. So for the majority of the time we just messed around. We have what was called an arboretum in the science wing of our school. Just a bunch of plants, small trees and some fish. It was indoors with glass for a ceiling, if I remember correctly. One day, our teacher had us all go out there and pull a leaf or petal or whatever off these plants and trees to examine. Being that I always tried to be funny, I grabbed a massive leaf from a plant that was in the corner of the arboretum. The leaf was huge. I'm talking 2 to 3 feet long and probably a foot wide. I can't quite remember, but it was massive. So I bring this plant into the classroom. We were all just hanging out for a bit, and a girl I knew came up to me and dared me to eat the whole leaf I found for $5. I was a pretty fat kid back in the day, and she was really attractive. She was a year older than me, she was good looking, I knew her fairly well, and that was enough to convince me. I was going to try to get some laughs and eat this massive leaf. I suppose the $5 was also a nice incentive, because I could get extra milk cartons that day. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. I took a giant bite out of that leaf, and it seemed as if I had barely made a dent to completing my dare. Within a few seconds of taking that bite, so it seemed, it felt like hundreds of tiny needles were stabbing my entire mouth. I swallowed it, and my whole throat felt like it was swelling and being pricked repeatedly by needles. It was painful. Seriously, it was as if it was giving me splinters throughout my throat and mouth. I froze up. I said I can't eat this thing and internally questioned what was happening. I decided to bring someone down with me. A buddy of mine who I've known since as long back as I can remember was nearby. I said, "Eat this leaf and I'll give you $50 right now," knowing he would only take a bite and give up. That's exactly what happened. He seemed a bit worried about it too. Regardless, he went and did the same thing to another friend of ours. He said, "If you eat this whole leaf, I'll give you $100. He too took a massive bite. He gave us a blank stare and we all looked at each other, trying to hide our concern from one another. So it seemed. We all were having crazy pains in our mouth and throat at this point, and the teacher managed to notice something was going on, because the whole class was infatuated with our attempts at eating this plant. The teacher investigates after he had people tell him what was going on. We leave class after the bell rings to go to our next class. The loudspeaker goes off, calling all 3 of us into the main office. We're all taken into the nurse quickly, and they start looking at our mouths and throats, etc. She said what we tried to eat was called an elephant ear leaf. Apparently, this plant is poisonous. She also said that our lungs could swell up or collapse, and we could die. If you read up about this leaf, you'll see it actually can cause death, is poisonous, and you should call 911 if you come into contact with it, etc., etc. We were all teens, so we laugh it off and go on about our business. We were supposed to report back if we started noticing any breathing issues. The pain stayed for the rest of the day, and by next day, I think, we managed to be just fine. What happened after was one of the weirdest parts. Kids throughout the school found out about it and started snorting it. It became this very odd craze for a little bit. Within about 2 to 3 days, the staff ends up digging out the elephant ear plants, and one of the teachers who knew my family and I pretty well, who ran the agriculture science wing, made a giant sign that replaced the plant, and it read, "Only idiots eat plants." 2. So picture the scene. A heavily bearded 19-year-old wakes up, face in his pillow, his lips stuck to the fabric by dry drool. It's almost noon. He is I, and I am him. My first thought is, damn, I've got a lot of shit to do today. So naturally, my second thought is, right, guess I better get dressed and go get myself a coffee. I reach for the edge of my mattress, and I pull myself off the bed, landing like a drunk cat amongst a pile of empty energy drink cans, crisp packets, and various other articles of detritus. I'm not classy. All in all, so far the day's been a success. I managed to get out of bed, so that's the hard part out of the way. I proceed to put my clothes on, and that mostly goes okay. I get my shoes on the right feet, and I manage to put my glasses on without poking myself in the eye. I'm ready to track down that cappuccino. It takes me about 10 minutes to reach my usual coffee machine, and I reach into my pocket to find £1 to pay with, as it turns out. I don't have any cash, and I don't really want to draw a tenner just for one cup of coffee. It's no big deal. I know where I can find a different coffee machine that lets you pay by card. So I set off knowing that everything is going to be okay. I arrive. I take my bank card out of my wallet and look up at the coffee machine. The badly drawn red penguin looks back. I find myself perplexed. I am quite sure that the last time I used this coffee machine, it wasn't a whiteboard sitting in a coffee machine-shaped alcove with a badly drawn penguin on it. The penguin seems unlikely to want to barter with me, so, undeterred, I set out to the next coffee machine that I know accepts payment by bank card. It's out of order. At this point, it feels like I'm being toyed with by a cruel god. My university had a new building made recently. I've never been in there, but I decided now is the time to venture into the unknown. If I don't, I may regret it forever. It's an intimidating prospect, but at this point, I feel like I owe it to myself to find that coffee one way or another, or all my efforts will be wasted. So I walk over to the new building, and I approach the front door. I wave my ID card at the reader, and to my surprise, the door opens. Usually, if you have no business being in a particular building at my university, your card simply won't open it for you. On the other hand, if it will open for you, it's usually a pretty safe bet that it's okay for you to be there. Or so I thought. Just as I'm starting to think that it seems a little too quiet, university buildings almost always have someone in them, even on a quiet day, and wondering what that strange beeping noise somewhere deep within the building is, I hit the jackpot. A functioning coffee machine with a card reader. I've been wondering for over an hour just to find one cup of coffee. I'm filled with the same kind of relief that Frodo must have felt when the ring was finally destroyed. Probably. I order my cappuccino. I'm ready. I'm excited. I realize my mistake when I presented with my new clue. 2 security guards. They politely inform me that I need to come with them now, please. I feel helpless, like a turtle on his back. To them, I'm just a slightly deranged-looking man who's just inexplicably appeared inside a building that should be locked. They didn't see me enter. I explain that I'm only there because I've been looking for a functioning coffee machine for over an hour. They laugh at me. They radio in that it's just a dumb shit student trying to get coffee. And they tell me that they'll have to write up a report later because they'd been sent to deal with the trespassing incident. I feel bad for wasting their time. They were expecting to have to confront a burglar or whatever. Fortunately, they were friendly about it. They let me wait for the machine to finish making my coffee. And then they let me leave via the back door so that I don't trip an alarm again. In hindsight, it was obvious that I shouldn't have been in that building, and now my mistake has robbed 2 good men of probably about 10 minutes apiece. They will never get that time back. I have become a monster. The coffee wasn't even that good. 3. Backstory. I live in a very small town and there are not many dating options. There are even less options for things to do at night. Only one bar is open past 10 p.m. Everyone knows everyone, and if you're not 21 or interested in becoming a member of the Old Timers Club, people over age 50 who all seem to have been married, dated, or at least hooked up with each other at one time or another, well, you're kinda shit out of luck in the dating area. That's what makes this fuck-up so much worse. When a new person moves to the area, it's like a bat signal goes off. All of a sudden, the one bar in town is inundated with the opposite sex of the new person in town. And it's on. An unspoken battle wages with everyone vying for the new person's attention, trying to possibly get a chance at a date, or even more unicorny, a potential relationship. I've watched this scenario play out for years and have never partaken. I'm sort of a Norm from Cheers kind of bar patron, except I keep to myself when I'm not out with friends. I'm older than the newly minted 21-year-olds who frequent the one bar, but younger than the old-timers. I have an unusual living-work situation, in that I live in this small town but I travel frequently for work out of state. I'm also, technically, still married but have been separated for many years. All that, plus my actually having standards, which include having a job and all your teeth, and a very particular physical type that is not prevalent in my town, all equals my dating options having been more limited than most. Miracle of all miracles. A new guy moves to town who is right in my wheelhouse, my age, my type. Smart, witty, educated, travels for work, doesn't have any kids, free to do what he wants, smokes, drinks, just the right amount. Not too much, not too little. It's perfect. My karma is coming due, baby. I'm not gonna be modest. I've got game. If I hone in on a target, I usually acquire said target. There just haven't been any options for me to target practice on in this town in years. Needless to say, I'm going in for the kill with a new-to-town hot guy. So there I am at the one bar, chatting with the guy. We chatted a couple of times before and hung out once on a spur-of-the-moment movie date with a group of my friends. He had given me his card after the movies, but I had lost it in my attempt to play the game and not seem overly interested in contacting him right away. We were both not jumping on each other, but I could definitely tell we both knew we had chemistry. I knew this wasn't going to be a hookup scenario. Since losing his card, I had been hoping to run into him again at the one bar. Now on to the fuck-up. At the time of this fuck-up, I was in a full leg brace due to an injury. He was being very attentive and things had been going well that evening. I anticipated this being the night I locked that shit down. I was going to make my move while we were outside smoking. Once outside, a girl I used to work with was walking into the bar. Saw us, and came over and bummed a smoke. Damn bat signal. But like I said, I've got game. I had already locked him in well enough that when he saw me come into the one bar, he left whoever he was sitting with, and came to sit with me. All three of us were out there smoking, cracking jokes, laughing. Dude is totally into me, completely ignoring the other girl who is very obviously trying to get his attention. He says something funny, and I laughed so hard. I farted. A dry, loud, ripping fart. Complete silence. I'm looking around everywhere but at the guy, kinda squinting. Looking up into the sky like I'm trying to figure out the various constellations. The girl is staring at her shoes, but the guy, he's just staring at me, mouth agape. Him. Did you just fart? Me. Still squinting and looking questioningly around at the sky. Him. Looking at the other girl. She just farted, right? You heard it. Other girl. What? I didn't hear anything. Him, seriously, you just farted. Me, oh, that? No, that wasn't a fart, it was probably just my leg brace. This Velcro, it makes sounds. It sounds just like a fart. I then proceeded to reach down and slowly rip the Velcro off one of the brace straps. Then I rip it again a couple of times really quickly, trying to replicate the sound of my fart. Miserable fail, by the way. The other girl couldn't contain her laughter and she turned and walked off into the bar, leaving me and the hot guy standing there staring uncomfortably at each other. I'm silently willing him to continue to challenge whether it was an actual fart or the Velcro. And he starts to say something and I cut him off by ripping at the Velcro. Rip, rip, rip. All the while, I'm now trying to stare him down. I can see he wants to challenge me and say something more. But I just keep doing and undoing the Velcro. Rip, rip, rip. I'm like, well, I'm heading back in. And turn and start hobbling back into the bar, with him following not so closely behind me. I walked past our seats at the bar and went to the bathroom to try and compose myself. When I came out, he had moved his drink further down the bar and was sitting with the other girl. He just stared at me, the most incredulous look on his face as I walked past. Needless to say, no target was acquired by me that night. I saw him a few times after the fuck up, and he never even nodded in my direction. I'm still single and farting. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here. I'm kind of rushing to get this out on time, but it was sort of a last minute thing with this video again. So I'd just like to thank everyone for letting me use their stories. I do find this series is quite fun. And while I can't do it as regular as I would some of the other ones I do, I think I will keep doing it as and when I can get the stories. I also want to say massive thanks to all the wonderful feedback you've given me on my recent uploads this week. It really is appreciated. So, and all the likes, and I know some of you have shared the videos. That really does help as well. Okay, so I'm gonna go now to work on the next video. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.